Hello and welcome to episode 518 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, as always joined by Evan Silva, and we are down to the Elite Eight of the NFL playoffs. Evan, how's it going?
It's going really well. I mean, I thought that was another awesome wild card round. You know, I for a long time considered the divisional round to be the best weekend of football, bar none. I'm sort of starting to change my tune a little bit. I mean, we've had a lot of really strong wild card rounds, and this was an action-packed weekend. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was an awesome weekend to watch football.
Yeah, and as parity has kind of flattened across the entire NFL, you see more games. Hey, the 7th seed or the 6th seed can beat the 3 seed. The 7th seed can beat the 2 seed. It's all in the range of outcomes, at least. On today's show, we're going to go team by team through each team remaining in the NFL playoffs, talk about what we saw during wildcard weekend and what it means going forward. Before we get into it, reminder, this podcast is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. They are running best ball contests, which start this weekend and end with the Super Bowl. Again, they just launched contest, starts this weekend, best ball contest starts this weekend, ends with the Super Bowl. Our rankings for those contests are up now in the season log tab on the site. If you have not tried Underdog yet, they will match your first deposit up to $100. Use promo code ETR. Again, first deposit match up to $100 with promo code ETR at UnderdogFantasy.com. All right, let's start with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, we talked about it some last week. This defense, even though they have been struggling badly the last month or so, really badly, even their season-long stuff, which includes those struggles against some bad offenses, still rated out as one of the best, if not the best, defense in the entire NFL. And last night, they crushed. Now, it wasn't exactly a formidable opponent. We've seen Tom Brady in this offense struggle all season. But, Evan, what were your overall thoughts on Dallas's performance last night?
Yeah, I think that's the best place to start, is that the defense, which had shown a lot of leaks late in the season, we went through it. I mean, their last 5 games, they really weren't by any means a dominant team. And one of their biggest weaknesses really had become their defense. That was not the case against Tampa Bay. They got pressure all night. The Cowboys only blitzed 6 times against Tampa Bay. They got 19 pressures. 10 of them were from Micah Parsons. They started Xavier Rhodes at number 2 cornerback, and they were able to play pretty well. All things considered, there was a pass that Brady missed. Some people were calling it a Mike Evans drop late in the game. They could have actually narrowed the game to a 10-point deficit with about 2 minutes left. I thought that it was a miss by Brady. Some people called it a drop by Mike Evans. That might have changed it a little bit, but ultimately I thought that their defense played absolutely lights out, and Dak Prescott was phenomenal. Dak Prescott, who was up and down late in the season, he wound up leading the NFL in interceptions with 15. Interceptions are individual plays that you have to break down. It's only 15 interception, 15 technically bad throws over the course of, a very, very long season. It's not like you went out there and threw 25 or anything like that, but they're individual plays. And if you look at them, like a lot of them, they weren't all on Dak Prescott. And in this game, he was absolutely marvelous against a very good defense. I mean, Dak Prescott was played at an absolute elite level on Monday night.
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back on the Tom Brady thing for a second. This guy broke the NFL record for pass attempts in a season, literally threw the ball more times than any quarterback had in NFL history, still only finished as fantasy's QB 16. Now, he had the game that broke the slate, his best game of the year against the Panthers there in week 17, where him and Mike Evans went off. But man, that was such an outlier. It was rough for him this year. Again, QB 16 in fantasy points per game, despite leading the entire NFL and setting the record in pass attempts. Touchdown rate was pathetic, around 3.4%. ADOT was pathetic, around 7.3 yards. I don't know if you have a take on how much Brady has left. Do you think Brady will be in the league next year? Do you think he'll be back with the Bucs? Any Brady takes before we close the chapter
I have
on the Bucs?
Lots of Tom Brady takes. First of all, I think he's a middle of the road. I mean, I think he's still a starting quarterback in the NFL, but I mean, in this particular game, but first of all, he doesn't want to take hits anymore. I mean, that much is clear. He's also withered down. He's so skinny. I mean, did you see the video of him walking around before the game? He's like I'm worried about his health. I mean, a little bit. And I also found it interesting that after the game, the discussion is, Brady can't go. Brady needs, he can't go out on this note. Brady needs to go get his fucking family back. Okay. I mean, he lost his family over this. Like, he needs to go get it, make sure his life is in order. I mean, I do still think he can be a top 20, top 15 NFL quarterback. But at the same time, like, he didn't play like that in this game. So many throws behind receivers. He got Russell Gage hurt. Yeah. And you could see the look in his eyes late in that game. He knew that he put Russell Gage, all of his throws were behind his receivers late in the game. And he put Russell Gage into a position where Russell Gage was like, coming over the middle, essentially, threw it behind him, winds up, taking a hit that he shouldn't have taken. And so I don't know, man. I think that if I was Tom Brady, if I was anybody like trying to give Tom Brady advice, obviously he wouldn't take advice from me. but if I was in that kind of position, and if I was going to express my opinion on the future of Tom Brady, I'd be like, dude, go get your. I mean, you're pushing 50, bro. Yeah. Like, go get your family back. It's not worth it anymore.
Yeah. And so I think the hard part for people and for Tom Brady and for everybody included is Tom Brady is way worse than he was, but he's still good. Like Evan said, like, you can be way worse than Tom Brady was, which was really, really elite, and still be, the 15th best quarterback in the NFL, the 17th best quarterback in the NFL. He can help teams, I think, for sure. We'll see what happens this offseason, though. Couple usage notes on Dallas before we move on. I looked to me like they wanted to give Tony Pollard more, but the game was somewhat in control pretty much the whole way. Pollard still led Zeke 40-33 in snaps. Pollard still led 16-14 in routes. Pollard still led 18-14 in opportunities. That includes a couple garbage time carries late. For Zeke, I think in a close game against San Francisco, and if this game against San Francisco coming up is close, I think we'll see that gap wider. I've wish-casted this before, but I do think we'll see the gap wider. Other usage note I had here was T.Y. Hilton. They're raising his role. I mean, 19 routes on 37 Dak dropbacks last night. That was certainly well ahead of Noah Brown, who only had 13 routes and 4 targets. Not only is T.Y. Hilton out there a lot, he's actually commanding targets at a reasonable rate. And so for the smaller slates that are coming up, T.Y. Hilton is certainly on the radar. Evan, any more thoughts on Dallas, Pollard, T.Y. Hilton, anything else?
No, I mean, another big game from Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz has been just rock solid for them, for the past 2 seasons. No, I mean, I think that, like when Dak is clicking like this, they can absolutely run the table. It's just going to be a matter of them continuing to play defense at this super high level. Dak continuing to play at this super high level. The play that they got from their offensive line in this game was awesome. The rookie Tyler Smith is going to be a beast in the league for a decade.
Let's go to the New York Giants. People are probably tired of hearing me and us talk about Daniel Jones, but I just have to harken back to the preseason, and we would say stuff about Daniel Jones, and people are like, oh, Daniel Jones is going to get benched. He's going to get benched for Tyrod Taylor. Instead of that, this guy, Daniel Jones, is one of the MVPs of the fantasy season. He leads a talent-depraved team to the playoffs, and then he goes on the win, and with sheer heart, sheer guts, sheer athleticism, wins a road playoff game. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. One other point on Daniel Jones.
Did you just read that off a script?
One other point on this Daniel Jones rushing stuff. There's only been 8 quarterbacks to ever throw for 3,000 yards in a season and rush for 700. Daniel Jones became the 8th. Randall Cunningham, Cam Newton, Robert Griffin, Russ Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Daniel J. Dimes. What a win for the New York Giants. Go on the road in the playoffs. What you see out of their win. And I think the Vikings, have been somewhat exposed now. I think I'll talk about more in a second. But yeah, what do you think of the Giants winning against the Vikings?
They've been exposed. They were exposed. I mean, they were exposed many times, really, over the course of the season. We'll get to that. Yeah, I mean, look, I feel like I don't feel like I was ever anti Daniel Jones, but I was never as much on board with him as you were. And so I guess I have to capitulate again, although this is post-capitulation. We don't usually do that. 11 design runs in this game. I think that what stands out to me just watching him play, Daniel Jones, and look, Daboll let him rip it twice, big time this season in 2 particular games. They were both against the Vikings. So a lot of credit obviously goes to Brian Daboll, which you obviously would acknowledge. Mm-hmm. But I think that what really stands out to me when you watch Daniel Jones play is how much looser and more confident he is than he was earlier in his career, because he was kind of a robot. I remember at one point Matt Waldman described him as like a mannequin quarterback. Like, he looks the part, like getting off the bus, but when he goes out there, he plays like very robotic. I think he's played a lot looser. He's playing with more confidence. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Do you think he's going to get the franchise tag?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're going to have to retain him in some way. I'm not sure exactly what way that will be.
And again, he's out there. He's elevating teammates, Adam.
Yeah.
He's elevating teammates. I mean, would you agree with that? I mean,
that was my next point.
Yeah.
Isaiah Hodgins was a 6th-round rookie out of Oregon State, I think in 2021. Never really got on the field for the Bills. Ends up getting claimed off waivers in November by Daboll and the Giants. Now Isaiah Hodgins going 8-1-0-5-1 in freaking playoff games. And I get it. It's against the Vikings. It's against the Vikings secondary. But still, I think Isaiah Hodgins played pretty well. Any thoughts on him going forward? Anything else on the Giants?
I mean, he's a big target. He's not really a separator. I believe he's 6'4", 215. He knows the offense inside and out. He was with Daboll in Buffalo. And I think that he's earned the trust of Daniel Jones. So I think he's done everything. I mean, he's kept Kenny Golladay on the bench. Kenny Golladay did have a nice little block in this game.
I saw that.
I wanted to say, for Darius Slayton, man, that drop late in the game. Like, as someone who was a big Giants supporter in this game, that was devastating. Just one of the most egregious drops that you'll ever see. But he's another guy who has popped up for big moments this season. I don't know whether to give. I mean, they both deserve credit. Brian Daboll and Daniel Jones both deserve a lot of credit. I don't know who to give more credit. My lean is still toward Brian Daboll, but I don't know if it matters really that much, and we're kind of parsing.
I agree with that. The last thing I want to say about the Vikings, it is like the clearest example I can remember of like the public understanding, or hopefully understanding, how much luck plays a factor in wins and losses record. And I get that they won 13 games. I get that they had a great year. If you go into the numbers, underlying numbers, for much of the season, the Vikings were like a bottom third team in every underlying number. They just kept finding ways to win, fluky, lucky, whatever you want to call it. And then, the hens came home to roost, or whatever the saying goes, late this season, as they lost some games and lost in the first round of the playoffs to a kind of talent depraved, as I said, Giants team. And so I hope that people who were like adamant, you guys don't know what you're talking about. And this is not us. I mean, like real, and not fantasy people, like real NFL people were like trying to tell the public Vikings aren't that good. Odds makers were telling people Vikings aren't that good. People refuse to believe it. I think now that maybe that is smacking them in the face. Any thoughts on the Vikings here as we kind of close out their season?
No, I think you summed it up pretty well.
One thing I would say is the Hawkinson stuff, man. My God.
Right.
70 balls in 11 games as a Viking. He's 25 years old. TJ Hawkinson might be like fantasy's number 2 tight end next year. Like I could see TJ Hawkinson being ranked as fantasy's tight end 2 next year. So yeah.
Yeah, or maybe even their number 1 if they don't go and upgrade their and Travis Kelce's going to be a year older. So the way that they used him was, I mean, and remember we saw it right off the bat. I mean, I had a little bit of skepticism right after they acquired him. I think it'll probably be more of the same as it was in Detroit. No, it wasn't. They made an absolute point to feature him, and their entire coaching staff is coming back. He'll have continuity with the quarterback. I mean, he's going to be in a great spot going into 2023.
Let's go to the Eagles.
Not the award winner, by the way, we should point out.
Yes. Let's go to the Eagles. So Eagles had to bye, I think a much needed bye. They found out they will host the New York Giants. This will be the third time that the Eagles and Giants will play in the last 6 weeks or so. Now, of course, the Giants didn't really play that game in week 18. They basically played their JV squad, but it still turned into a close game. Regardless, the story for me on the Eagles is injuries. So I thought in week 18, when Jalen Hurts came back and played through that shoulder sprain, it looked like it was still an issue against the Giants and those JV guys. Sirianni came out after the game and said Hurts' shoulder was still healing. That was 2 weeks ago. He's got to be closer to 100% now. I think the game plan will be what it's been all season. Other injuries we're watching on the Eagles, Lane Johnson, right tackle, very, very good right tackle, makes a big difference. Tore his adductor in week 16. He didn't have surgery. Looked like he was going through drills and practicing this week. So it looks like he'll be fine. They're getting some secondary guys back as well. So, I mean, to me, the Eagles should be getting healthier at the right time. Any thoughts on them as they come out of their bye?
Just to add a little bit on the injury front, Josh Sweat, who has been maybe their most consistent outside pass rusher this season, or one of their top two. He missed week 18 with a neck injury. He is fully expected to be back. They got back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Robert Quinn in week 18, and Avonte Maddox would be the guy, and he's a really good slot corner for them. Toe injury, missed the final 7 games. I think he's got a chance to be back too.
One other thing I'd say about matchup, we'll talk more about this on Friday on Establish the Show, but when the Eagles actually played the Giants in week 14, Miles Sanders, 17 carries, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns. I know we saw a bunch of Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell that week 18 game, but going back into leaning into Miles, I think makes some sense here. We'll talk more about that on Friday. San Francisco, it's just, I know we've repeated this so many times. The team is so talented. I mean, they might have one of the best defenses in the entire league. Christian McCaffrey in this game against the Seahawks has a 68-yard run. Debo has a 22-yard run and a 74-yard touchdown catch. He's back. Ayuk had a 31-yard catch. Juwan Jennings had a 33-yard catch. George Kittle. I mean, everybody's open. Eli Mitchell had an 18-yard catch. I mean, everybody's just open constantly. And so Brock Purdy just has to be competent, and he has been that and more. Went off for 37 DraftKings points in this game. What do you think of San Francisco? And this game was actually close at halftime, and then San Francisco just went nuke in the second half.
Yeah. No, I just need to capitulate to Wiggins. I got to stop questioning Wiggins because he was talking up Debo Samuel, awesome GPP play, and I threw a little bit of shade on our Friday show, and so I just got to stop questioning Wiggins. This was an awesome week to play Debo in GPP, just as Wiggins said. So I'm sorry again.
Yeah. From Debo, just total outlier stuff once again, but again, he's just so consistent in doing it going back. At least he was last year. Christian McCaffrey, so insanely good. But as we expected, Eli Mitchell mixed in plenty. Like before the game got out of hand, before it was 38-17, it was CMC 16 touches, Eli Mitchell 7, Jordan Mason 0. And so Eli Mitchell remains a factor there for sure. One other note on this game, God, we had Kenneth Walker over 15.5 carries in this game, and Seattle was up 17-16 at halftime, and Kenneth Walker had 13 carries. They just gave up on him. I mean, he finished with 15 carries. It was so sick. I mean, one of the worst beats I can remember.
I saw some other people that were betting his rushing yardage props lost it on like a late game, like a 7-yard loss, which actually isn't the first time that he has he's had like a massive rushing loss to finish below his yardage prop. But yeah, I don't know. It's a big game for DK Metcalf. Seattle, I think it was clear. They just, from a talent standpoint, they did well to keep it kind of close for a couple of quarters here.
No doubt. Our Lions would have put up a better fight. Ducks. Okay. Bills. I thought this game was going to get completely out of hand, man. It was 17-0 Bills. They're playing at Skylar Thompson. I mean, it just looked like absolute curtains. Somehow, I don't even really know how. Somehow, the Bills stick around and are in it all the way to the end. Bills squeak by 34-31 past the Dolphins at home. One thing I noticed from this game was just an insanely aggressive plan or insanely aggressive execution from Josh Allen. Average depth of target for Josh Allen this game was 16.5 yards. Just outrageously alpha, outrageously aggressive. His season ADOT was only 9.7 yards. Now, I think the Dolphins' defensive game plan had something to do with this, and I'm no tape bro, but it was obvious that they were daring the Bills to beat them up top, and they did that with Gabe Davis, with Steph Diggs. So what do you think of the Bills' narrow win over the Dolphins?
The Dolphins just kind of did the Dolphins kind of played their cards right, really offensively and defensively. They actually are rumored to be maybe making some changes on the defensive side of the ball. But, I mean, they got to Josh Allen a lot in this game. They had 7 sacks. They were really aggressive on defense. They hit Josh Allen 13 times. The offensive line for Buffalo is actually kind of a concern as well. And that's kind of been the case. Josh Allen can kind of mask that to an extent. I still think that the talent behind Stephon Diggs and their pass catcher core, really throughout their skill position player core behind Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, it's just very, very mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very. They got a bunch of guys, and I would consider Gabe Davis, even though I know he had a really good box score game here, I would consider him to be a pretty average talent at number 2 receiver. And I think that in the offseason, and look, we don't have to worry about that. I mean, I think that the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl, but I think in the offseason, like, they need to look into adding some talent at number 2 receiver.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen was so aggressive in this game. He didn't even throw passes to the running backs at all. He only threw 2 passes to running backs. Both were to Nyheim Hines. No targets for Devin Singletary or James Cook. By the way, in this game, Devin Singletary was ahead of James Cook, 41-23 in snaps, but James Cook was ahead in opportunities, 12-10. Still think that I'd probably rather slightly play Singletary in DFS, but we'll talk more about that on Friday. Also in this game, Isaiah McKenzie was scratched. I don't know if he'll be back for the divisional round against the Bengals or not, but in this game with McKenzie out, it was Diggs and Gabe in every down rolls, and then 23 routes for Cole Beasley, 19 for Khalil Shakir, 16 for John Brown. I would love to see them just give Khalil Shakir more. He earned 5 targets on those 19 routes, and he did have a drop that was bad, but still, in the 2 games McKenzie has missed this year, Khalil Shakir 6-126-1 on 10 targets. I hope he gets more opportunities, and in Dynasty, like, I think holding Khalil Shakir makes a ton of sense. By the way, Dynasty rankings are updated on the site. Let's go to Cincinnati. We kind of talked about on Friday how this could be ways that Baltimore can keep this game close. So many offensive line injuries for the Bengals. And by the way, early in this game, or it's midway through this game, they lose Jonah Williams to a dislocated kneecap. So no La'el Collins, no Alex Kappa, and then they lose Jonah Williams in the game. Meanwhile, Baltimore's defense is no joke, and that's kind of how it played out. That's how they kept the game close. Now, Tyler Huntley played his ass off in this game, man. Way better than I thought he could play. I do think that the Bengals offense will be way, way, way better against the Bills this week. In this game, though, they only got 54 plays off to the Bengals. Joe Burrow took 4 sacks. What did you think of the Bengals' kind of ugly win against the Ravens?
Just the biggest takeaway is the offensive line. I'm worried about the Bengals. The Bengals were a team that I thought, maybe had a chance to, like, an outside chance to run the table as they entered the playoffs, but then they lose Alex Kappa in week 18, and they lose Jonah Williams in this game. Like, the Bills have a lot of really good players up front in their front seven. I mean, they're absolutely loaded. And so I know that'll be a big theme in the matchups column this week. I'm worried about Cincinnati, and I mean, Joe Burrow he can overcome it. He really can. I mean, I think he's Tony Romo. I think that would be my player comparison for him. He can overcome disadvantageous situations around him, but man, it's getting really, really bleak up front.
Well, and it doesn't help the Bengals that, in my opinion, they got screwed by the NFL by having to play this game in Buffalo. Obviously, the unfortunate situation with Damar Hamlin didn't let the game play out. But if the Bengals had beaten the Bills on that Monday night and then beaten the Ravens in Week 18, a lying down Ravens team, they would be the number 2 seed, and this game would be in Cincy. And so, you guys know me. I'm Mr. No Excuses. Play like a champion. Don't whine. Don't bitch. But, I mean, I think Bengals fans and players have a right to be a bit upset here. To me, this game should be on a neutral field. And by the way, if the Bills play the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, that game will be played in Atlanta, a neutral field. Yeah, just my opinion that this game should be neutral field as well. Let's go to Jacksonville. What a wild game this was on, Saturday night. The Jacksonville Jaguars get down 27-0 late in the second quarter. Trevor Lawrence throws 4 interceptions. They come all the way back and win a game which got Joe Lombardi fired, by the way. And we'll see on Brandon Staley. I guess I didn't look into it too much. I assume this means Brandon Staley is safe. I don't know. But anyways, what do you think of the wild Jaguars comeback on Saturday night?
Yeah, I mean, it was just an incredible comeback. I mean, I don't think that this is, well, I mean, this was the final game of Joe Lombardi's career as the Chargers OC, but I think that the problems, because he's not maximizing the strengths of the player personnel that he had.
They're so talented.
Right,
Somebody's
they're
got to
so
take them out.
talented.
Yeah.
I actually, and as someone who has been a big supporter of Brandon Staley in the past, I thought that he should have been fired.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they had a chance to acquire Sean Payton, well, then I think that they should do that. I don't think they're going to do that though. Like they're considered to be one of the cheapest ownership groups in the NFL. Sean Payton is going to cost a lot. They'd have to get rid of Tom Telesco, who's done a really good job in all likelihood. I mean, you don't just bring in Sean Payton to work under Tom Telesco. You bring him in to run the whole ship. I think that Joe Lombardi needed to go. But this was just, it was the Chargers being the Chargers, man, absolutely collapsing. And I think that Brandon Staley should have to go too for the shit that he pulled in Week 18. And losing Mike Williams, that could have been the difference in this game.
Oh, for sure. And
Yeah.
I mean, the quotes around the Mike Williams stuff, it's like, oh, well, rest is more important than reps, et cetera. It's like so crazy. But yeah, I mean, I had a tweet like back in October or September or something about Brandon Staley, like being concerned he's fake sharp. And now, man, he just got all tied up in knots. Certainly a mess there. On the Jaguars side, they're going for it with Travis Etienne, man. I mean, 64 out of 74 snaps, 40 routes on 52 T-Law dropbacks, 20 out of 20 running back carries. But this team continues to refuse to throw the ball to the running back position, or at least maybe it's Travis Etienne can't earn targets. One target in this wild comeback for Travis Etienne, even though he ran 40 routes, is insane. I mean, Trevor Lawrence threw it 47 times. They got 70 plays off. And so if you're not throwing it to Travis Etienne, yeah, when you get that kind of script, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram are going to go off. Chiefs next. Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites here in Arrowhead. We'll talk more about that game on Friday.
I saw a pretty apt comparison that I liked for Trevor Lawrence right now at this stage of his career, that he's kind of becoming Andrew Luck. And if you remember, that was like a pretty common comparison for Trevor Lawrence coming out of Clemson. He obviously was not able to get there as a rookie in just a nightmare of a situation under Urban Meyer. I mean, that's where the arrow is trending. I mean, he's trending toward becoming, and he obviously had a horrible first half, okay? But I mean, just the resilience, the mental strength to come back and have an unbelievable second half like that. I think he's becoming that Andrew Luck level player that we expected him to be out of Clemson. And I mean, at this point, he's got like 7 or 8 of his last 9 games have been phenomenal. I mean, the way that he finished his second half of the season, as good as anybody except for maybe the truly elite tier. Like, he's pushing himself into like the top 8, top 10 conversation right now, I think at very least among NFL quarterbacks.
And we'll get Calvin Ridley next season,
Yes.
which I think can certainly help.
They can send Zay Jones to the bench.
Let's go to the Chiefs. Last one we're going to do here today. Chiefs are coming off of a bye. I'm concerned about this Mecole Hardman thing. I thought Mecole Hardman was going to play Week 18. I think the Chiefs thought Mecole Hardman was going to play Week 18. He did not. Now he's had another 2 weeks off, and he's still not ready to practice. At this point, I mean, I don't think he's going to be able to play this week. He's been off for so long. We'll see on Sky Moore. He just had a hand laceration. Feels to me like he should be fine, but they've preferred Justin Watson, and I feel like they're going to prefer Kadarius Toney to Sky Moore. We'll certainly talk more about all that stuff on Friday. Anything for you on the Chiefs as they come out of their bye here? Oh, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is also back practicing. I think the McKinnon-Pacheco combo has been good enough to keep CEH on the bench, but we'll see there. Any thoughts there? Anything else on the Chiefs?
I think that might be the most interesting aspect of this game, just from like a personnel and fantasy standpoint. Like, are they going to even bring back Clyde Edwards-Helaire if he's able to practice? Because I mean, I think the other 2 guys are better than him.
Agreed. And they've played such good football with those 2 guys. Again, I think the Kadarius Toney stuff is really, really interesting with this latest on Mecole Hardman and their hesitation to use Sky Moore. I mean, God, Justin Watson out there is just killing me. I mean, it's killing me watching this guy with Patrick Mahomes. By the way, Chiefs and Jags did play earlier this year. Chiefs won 27-17 in Kansas City. That was back in week 10, I believe. And Mahomes threw 4 touchdowns in that game. Should be another really good one here between Lawrence and Patrick Mahomes. All right. We will be back on Friday for subscribers with Wiggins to talk through all things DFS for the 2-game slate Saturday, the 2-game slate Sunday, and the 4-game full week slate. If you're looking to move on to other things, golf is up and running. NBA is up and running. You can check out all the information there under the tabs on the site or on the subscribe pages. For Evan, for producer Luke, I'm Adam. Good luck, everybody.